You've noticed them before, the person in the meeting who says nothing while others scramble for attention, the one at the dinner table whose silence somehow commands more respect than everyone else's words combined. And you've probably wondered if they're afraid, broken, or simply better than you at something you can't quite name. The uncomfortable truth is that many silent people aren't quiet because they lack confidence or have nothing to say. They're quiet because they've learned something. Most people never figure out that observation is a form of power that speaking immediately destroys. When you talk, you reveal your cards. Your insecurities hide in every filler word and rushed explanation. Your need for validation becomes obvious in the way you end statements like questions, and suddenly everyone in the room knows exactly how to manipulate you. The silent person watches this unfold and sees it clearly. They notice how the loudest person in the room is often the most afraid, how people fill silence with confessions, how a pause can make someone expose truths they never intended to share. This isn't cruelty on their part. It's simply what happens when you stop performing and start observing. In childhood, some people learned that their words didn't matter. Perhaps they grew up with a parent who never listened, or a sibling who always talked louder, or a classroom where they learned that speaking up meant ridicule. And instead of spending decades in therapy trying to fix this, they transformed it into something else entirely, a superpower. They became the people who listen so completely that others feel truly seen for the first time in years, which is why people confide in them, trust them with secrets they'd never tell anyone else, and often report feeling changed after a single conversation where the silent person said almost nothing. But here's what most people miss. Silence is also a shield. And what's being protected isn't always strength. Some people stay silent because they're afraid their voice will shake, because they've been shamed for speaking before, because they exist in environments where their words literally don't count. A woman in a room where men interrupt constantly, a junior employee surrounded by authority figures, a child in a family where disagreement means abandonment. These people aren't choosing silence as a strategy, they're surviving it as a consequence. And the difference matters because we often romanticize the quiet person without acknowledging that we don't know whether they're quiet by choice or by necessity. The most unsettling part, the part people actively avoid thinking about, is that you can't actually tell the difference from the outside. The quiet person who has learned to weaponize silence looks exactly the same as the quiet person who is simply afraid, which means you might be respecting coercion as wisdom or dismissing genuine insight as shyness. You might be giving power to someone who never earned it, or denying a voice to someone who is burning to speak. What silence reveals isn't always what it seems. Sometimes it's intelligence, sometimes it's pain, sometimes it's manipulation, sometimes it's love, and sometimes it's all of these things at once in the same person. Which is why the next time you find yourself in a room with someone who doesn't speak, you won't be able to stop wondering what they actually know about you, about the situation, about everyone else there, and whether their silence means they're above the conversation or trapped beneath it. And that uncertainty, that inability to know for sure, is precisely why silent people often become the most memorable people in our lives, not because of what they say, but because of what we imagine they're thinking while the rest of us talk ourselves into irrelevance.